Hello, fellow educators. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create a digital breakout room, in particular for math, using Google Forms. This content is really not that hard to do. It takes a little bit of planning ahead of time, but it's a really interesting task. I'm really excited to be doing this with my students. So let me kind of walk you through how this is going to work. So the main idea you're going to be doing is you're just going to be using Google Forms. This doesn't require any special add-ons. It doesn't require any extensions. It's just Google Forms. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a series of tasks for your students to complete. Now, since this is bent on math, this is just creating math problems for your students to do, which we can do pretty easily and really will work for any type of content. And what you're going to do in Google Forms is you're going to use the short answer questions because the short answer questions have a special feature that say response validation. And what that does is it means that your students have to turn or type in a particular answer. And if they don't type that particular answer, well, then they're going to get kicked back and they can't move on through the form. So let me walk you through the steps of how this works, really. And I'm not going to present the slides. This is really for me to organize and then kind of bounce back and forth and show you how this works. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start by choosing your content. Since this is made for math, this can work for anything. I have made this for order of operations, solving equations, and I plan on doing this every unit throughout the e-learning, actually throughout the school year, just because I think it's fun. So choose your content, whatever you want to do. And what you're going to do from there is make some tasks related to it. Now, here are my suggestions. So you want to create tasks that the students can do something with the answers. So you want to avoid your answer being an equation. So like if you're having them solve literal equations, you want to avoid having them type in a literal equation just because that can get finicky with what you're trying to do. And matching questions can be really good as far as creating a code. So you want to avoid typing equations. And what I like to do is have students do things with the answer. So like if I have them do 6 problems, I may have them add them up or something like that. Let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about so that we can get a better picture. So if you go to the website, you're watching this video on our resources website, you can go through this, work through it, but here's an example. So first of all, here I have a matching example. So what I want the students to do is to match the expression with their correct word phrases. So this is a way for me to get around that whole typing an equation bit. So I'm having them match. And down at the bottom here, I have this passcode and I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I want them to do is to type in the specific letter that matches, and that letter combination will make the passcode that I want them to type in. You can do a letter combination. You can also do numbers. Let me show you how that works. So here's another example. I have 4 problems, and these are order of operations. And so I'm having them work it out. And then the clue for the passcode, I'm telling them it's a 4-digit number by giving them the boxes. And I give the clue is a number that is half the total. So I want them to think about the number, add it all up, and take half. So they're going to add up those 4 numbers they get and divide it by 2. So I just do things like that. So that way they have to do every problem. I don't want them to just work out one question and realize, oh, this is the answer. I want them to take all of the problems, do them all, because that's the purpose of this activity is to practice, and then figure out the code from there. So that's my suggestion. Have them do that. I like codes. I like multiple choice, or not multiple choice, matching. Here's another one where I'm using terminology. So I have them simplify these expressions. So they're simplifying with distributing and combining like terms. But then I ask them for specific things. So first I ask them for the coefficient m. Now, if you notice, there's only one of these that has an m. So after they simplify, what's the coefficient? Then I ask the constant term for number 2. So number 2, what's the constant term? So I'm asking them to use some math terminology as well as simplifying the problem. So this is a way you can kind of avoid having them just write expressions. You can have them simplify something and then just ask for particular pieces. Again, that way they can't just solve one problem and know the answer. So get creative with this. This takes a little bit of thought, just some practice. So do your best. If it fails the first time, try something different. So that's the first part, is to create your tasks. So I like 5 tasks personally, 4 or 5, nothing too crazy, because these can take a while, especially if students make mistakes or if they're really struggling. Make sure that you're ready to jump in to help. Next, what you want to do is you want to make a story. So your story can be really, really basic. That's okay. For my first one, I literally just said, let's go up to it, is you wake up on a beach, you don't know how you got there. And so I just made up this ridiculous story about how they're on a beach, they're trying to escape. How do they get through it? And apparently, whoever was on this beach, there's a building, and they left the passcodes everywhere. So that's basically my story. It's not that exciting, but just something kind of fun. Make up your own story, something like that. I suggest doing drafts and docs first, so that way you can edit and have someone read it and before you put it up. Next, this is optional, but I like to convert my problems to images. So what I do for this is I type out all my stuff, I type out my problems, everything, and then what I do is I come over to a Google Drawing. Now this is for a different one that is posted on the website. This is for the second one. So what I did was I just changed the background to this kind of brown thing to look like a letter, and then I just copy and paste in my text. Now from here in Google Drawings, you can insert these into Google Forms. So how you would do that is you would go to File, Publish to Web, and then there'll be a button that says Publish, and then you copy this. So you'll copy this, and this is what you're going to insert into your docs, and I'll show you how to do that now. So once you have the image you want to insert, you come over here, and anywhere in your example, you're going to go ahead and you're going to click, where's it? Add image right here, add image. And instead of upload, you're going to go to by URL, paste it, and it'll take a second. And what'll happen is the image will upload. You hit insert, and give it a moment. There you go. So that's how I insert all of my stuff. So I would type out my problems, I would type out my story, all of that stuff I would insert this way. So that's where all of these came from, as I inserted them into Google Drawings and then insert them using that trick. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure your answers are ready to go. So let me show you how to do this. So the validation is the really important part. So what I'm going to do is I have a question here, and I don't really have the passcode because that's something you're going to create. So I'm just going to make a prompt passcode, and you want to make this a required question. If it's not a required question, the students can just flip through the entire form and not have to do anything, which is not what I want. Next, make sure it's a short answer. You want to do this, click the three dots and go to response validation. This is really important. If you don't have response validation, again, they can just turn it in the answer and they're not going to kick back, and they can just progress to the form however they want. So depending on what you're doing, you could choose it to be a number, you could choose it to be a text, length, a regular expression. So I'm going to do a number, and I want my number, there's a ton of options, but in this case, I want it to be equal to. So let's say the answer is 1, 2, 3. That's the answer I want them to have. So I set number equal to 1, 2, 3. Now, if a student doesn't answer 1, 2, 3, it will not let them move on. However, there's a catch, and I learned this through playtesting, is that if you see this box right here that says custom error text, if you do not type this in, it will give the answers to the students. Meaning if they just type in 1, 2, 4 and they push the button, it'll say, no, the answer was 1, 2, 3. It will give away the answer if you do not put in a custom error message. So you can do something like a try again, or give a tip, maybe like make sure you're combining like terms, that sort of thing. This has to be put in. Otherwise, it's going to give away the answers. The students will figure it out. If there's a workaround to doing work, students figure it out. That's just how they are. So make sure you put that in there, and that will help. So you have your validation. Now, after you do your first task, what you want to do is you want to add a new section. So you do your passcode, and what that'll do is they have to answer that question, and then they go to a new section. And then you add story, problem, validation, story, problem, validation. You just keep going through that process all the way down through your Google form. And that's how you make the breakout room. Now, some other things you need to know is playtest. My suggestion, like I said just a minute ago, if you don't put in the custom error message, your students will figure out how to get around it. So be careful of that. Make sure you have all of that stuff squared away and have some playtest. So let's say you made an error in your problem and the answer is wrong. So like if you accidentally typed in the wrong answer and it's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, then someone else can catch it, you can go fix it, and you can go from there. So that's it. That's how you make a virtual breakout room with Google Forms. It takes a little bit of practice, but make sure you have that custom error message, play test it, try your best. Your students will be understanding, and best of luck.